Okay, that is where the generator originally went in the motorhome. And this is the second installment on putting solar on this thing. So I have decided, rather than going back with a generator in here, I tried to source out an Onan generator to put in, just too expensive, so I'm not going to do that. And so the alternative is to put in enough solar to run everything that I need to do. And so this is going to be the battery box. I had my neighbor build me a framework, and that's going to have a steel plate in the bottom of that. That's going to be in the bottom of this area. I'm going to bolt that in. So that's my next step, is to get that bolted in. I've got to, if you can see there, on either side, it's going to fit in there, and it's going to bolt up to those holes. So I've got to match it up and mark it off, get the holes drilled, get that in, and then the neighbor will finish putting the steel plate in the bottom, weld that in, and you can see over here, same thing. Get that all welded in, and then we can start putting some batteries in this thing. That cable hanging down there, that is the one that would have gone to the generator for charging the batteries. Since I am not going to need that for that purpose, it's just going to hook me right into the battery bank that's up front. It has two batteries up front, which is the normal for the coach batteries. And so what I'm going to do is now connect that to an additional 6 batteries. Have a total of 660 amp hours of battery. And then back over behind this, you can see in there, that's where all the shore plug goes, the wiring for it, for your extension cord to plug into shore power, and if you're plugging into the generator. So I'm going to connect up an inverter to go directly into that, where the generator would have plugged in. The inverter is going to plug into there, and it will supply electricity for the entire coach. Everything in there will be powered up by the new inverter that I've got. And I say new, it was used. Got it off Craigslist, but it is a warhorse, and I'll have a segment on it shortly as well. So what I need to do now is get that mounted up in there, get some vice grips to hold it in place, mark the holes and get the holes drilled, and get some bolts. Back in a bit. Okay, just to show you a little progress on what I've been doing, I just put something under there, an old milk crate and a couple of pieces of wood to put this thing into place. So you can see that I've got it mounted into pretty much mocked up to where it's going to be. I then, let me get under here, went under here, and there we go, it adjusted, and marked my holes so I can drill the holes in it and then get it mounted in. So once I've got that done, then we can take it out, get some paint on it, and yeah, those cables hanging down there, that would have been plugged into the generator, so that'll just go into my battery bank. So let me get this thing out, get some holes drilled, and get some bolts in it. Back in a bit. Okay, back on top of the motorhome here, and what I'm doing now is running the wiring. I've got 2 wires that come off of each panel, one positive, one negative, and I'm going to hook these up in series. Each panel produces about 30 volts, so that will give me 60 volts, and my amps will stay at 8.5, which is the capacity of each panel. So I double the voltage, but I keep the amps the same. I'm going to use these little stick-on zip tie connectors to put the cables down securely, to keep them from flapping and flopping around and causing noise and wearing out prematurely. Okay, so what I have got, and I'll just walk you back here, I've got this wire that is going to go back to, got to be careful up here, don't step off the edge, that would terminate the video pretty quickly. Here is an access hole that was in the back cap of the motorhome. This is where they ran the wiring for the rear or the backup camera. So I just used the same hole, pulled all the caulking and stuff they had in it out, so I'll be able to run my wires down. I've already pulled them down through, so I will be able to go ahead and just run this wire around the edge here and down the side and down that hole, and that'll make it a nice, neat install on here. So we've got 2 panels, each panel 255 watts, putting out 30 volts each, so I'll have 60 volts coming down the wire. One of the reasons I'm using series instead of parallel to go down is that you have less line loss on the voltage as it's going down. The higher the voltage with DC. So that'll minimize some of the line loss on that. Okay, let me continue on and get things hooked up, and I'll get back with you in a bit. Okay, here is the bottom of the battery box that I'm putting in. Probably a little over-engineered, but better to be safe than sorry. This is angle iron all the way around the exterior, the perimeter of it, with a big heavy piece of iron going down the center to strengthen that up, and 2 metal straps welded in going across on the sides. So what I'm going to do is put a little primer on it, and then I'm going to put some paint on it to help protect it, because this one, the bottom, will be exposed to the elements. So put a good coat of paint on there, and let me do that, and I'll be back and show you the results. Okay, just a little progress report. I've gotten the primer coat down, and I've gotten 1 coat of just flat black paint on it. I'm going to put another 1 or 2 on there. No one's going to ever see this, so there's no need to make it pretty and shiny and whatever. So I'm just using some flat black paint that I've got, Rust-Oleum, just kind of make sure that it doesn't rust, or at least rust too bad. Alright, and now for the inside of my battery box. Let me get down here and show you what we've got. As you can see, the sides are all lined with a reflective insulating material, and a little dirty and whatever, but it's a nice silver chrome looking color. And I just happen to have here in the garage a couple of cans of some chrome metallic paint. What do you think? Might ghetto it up a bit, but hey, I think it's going to look pretty sharp. So I think I'm going to go with that. I'll paint the walls of the battery box now. This used to be the generator compartment. Now this is the battery compartment. So I think I'll clean these down good and put a coating of the nice metallic chrome paint in there and see what that looks like. We'll get back with you in a bit. Okay, another update. I went ahead and painted with the chrome metallic paint the inside of the box here. I think that turned out pretty decent. So that cleaned that up quite a bit, and I have now finished painting the surface, or the pan itself, the outside black and the inside with the same chrome paint. So that turned out pretty decent, and we'll see how it looks when it gets all dry. But for now, it looks pretty good. I'll let this dry, and I'll continue working on getting my wiring down from the roof. Okay, I got the panels mounted. The wiring is all secured and run. So I'll just show you what I did. Ran the wiring there. As I said earlier, I've connected these panels in series. So each one puts out 30 volts. So that gives me a total of 60 volts and still maintains the 8 amps going into my solar charge controller. Got to be careful walking around up here. I've got limited space now. So you can see, or at least I hope you can see, that I put these little tie downs that go around the edges here. Really like these things. Self-adhesive, and then you just use a little zip tie over the top. These things are really, really sticky. Once you put them down, they pretty well stay there. So I've got my cable running down here to the back, and there was a hole that was already here that they had run the wiring for the backup camera, so I just removed that because I'm going to go with a wireless camera. Should not be needing that. So now I've run my wire down, and you can see the wire down on the driveway. So I've got to now take that, and my battery box is pretty well straight underneath me. So get that bolted in and start doing some wiring up, and I shouldn't be too far from having some power. Back in a bit. Okay, got the battery box mounted. It's in there securely. I think it would probably hold just about as much weight as you could stack in there. This thing, as I said earlier, is over-engineered. And I've got my wires coming down from the solar panels, and I just tested that, and I'm getting 65 volts. Let's see if I can somehow or another do this a three-handed job with two hands. Okay, maybe if I just do it that way, put it under my chin. Nope, that's not going to work. Okay, let me go get the tripod. Alright, let's see if we can measure the voltage on this thing now. Got the meter set up, and see if we can see what kind of power we're getting out of this. There we go, 64 point, let me move that a little closer so you can 64.8 volts coming out of the panels right now. That is excellent, with especially with the sun as low in the sky as it is right now. So it's a very low angle that I'm getting any sunlight, but that's the difference between polycrystalline panels and monocrystalline panels. They're not as affected by the angle of the sun. Okay folks, there we go. Next step is to get some batteries in and start hooking up some of this wiring to the solar charge controller, and then running something to the inverter. Back when we've got more. Okay, I've got the batteries installed. I've got 6 batteries back here in the battery compartment, which used to be the generator compartment. And these are the 82.5 amp hour batteries. They're the AGM types, so I don't have to worry about off-gassing or acid spilling or anything like that. They are connected into the 2 batteries up front. That was what the coach came with, was 2 batteries there, which gave me a little over 100 amp hours to run everything in the motorhome, which for my purposes is just not enough. So I've got these additional 6, gives me 660 amp hours of battery. So they will charge right now only with the engine running. So I had it running just a moment ago, went up to 13.1 volts, and so it's slowly dropping down. When I put the batteries in, they were somewhere around 12.5, I think is where they were. So they needed a charge. So the next project will be to get the solar charge controller installed. And so this wire right here comes down from the solar panels. I'll get that into the controller, and then this thing should be self-sufficient for a while on charging the batteries. That'll be somewhere around, with those 2 panels, around 35 amps coming in to charge the batteries off of those 2 panels. Okay, that's it for now.